I'm a goofy goober, yeah. You're a goofy goober, yeah. We're all goofy goobers, yeah. What's up, all of you travelers? I'm your bubble blowing baby, Russell Tyndall, and I'm here with your other bubble blowing baby, Ned
Dude,
Pruitt.
I'm a double bubble blowing baby.
You're a double bubble blowing baby?
Double bubble blowing baby. Double blow,
Already
bubble
getting
blow,
hard for me to say that. That's a tongue twister. Welcome to the Never Ending Adventure and Adventure Time special. That is the SpongeBob movie. I don't really know what the name of this movie is. I'll be honest, I didn't look it up. It's SpongeBob SquarePants, the movie 2004, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's just SpongeBob
We'll just
SquarePants.
like it's named.
Movie.
Yeah, it's just named like the what is the Pokemon movie that we did?
Yeah,
Pokemon the movie 1999. Mewtwo Strikes Back.
The first movie / Mewtwo Strikes Back, which I always again, we'll go on Pokemon on a different one, but I always thought that one was funny because it was like Strikes Back is always a name for a sequel movie, which is, I was like,
that's the
how
first,
can he be striking back if he never had a movie where he struck first?
No SpongeBob Strikes Back. If you're wondering what's going on, why we're doing this, it's because we just finished season 3 of Adventure Time and we're taking a little break. This is what we do sometimes. We do a special episode. And this is going to be loose. It's going to be fun. We're just going to dive into this SpongeBob SquarePants, the movie that we both watched recently, separately, not together as we used to do. But man, I don't even know where to begin. This is just like one of those movies that I feel like means a lot, and at the same time I don't watch it that often. It's just a movie that I've always loved, and I think more than anything it's for a character and for a show that I love more than most cartoons out there.
Yeah, I was gonna you hit a good point though, that I don't know, like I was definitely late to the SpongeBob game in general. Like it was definitely not allowed in my household for many years, I think.
Wow.
Just because my parents were very anti Cartoon Network, very anti, and they were cool on most Nickelodeon things, but like same thing with like Tom Kenny and all the like a lot of these people in SpongeBob, like Rocko's Modern Life and kind of the rough around the edges Nickelodeon stuff. They just kind of said no to off the bat, and so when SpongeBob came out, they were like, "Oh, no to off the bat," you know.
Yeah, I kind of get it. I mean, my mom didn't let us watch Ed, Edd and Eddy when we were pretty young, and I think it's because they're all, well, not Ed, but the other two Eds are kind of played as dumb-ish characters, and I don't think she really appreciated that too much. And so in this SpongeBob, you have obviously SpongeBob and Patrick that are kind of played off as not the brightest bunch, but they find a way. And I think the humor at that point, we were old enough in my household, and my mom was just like, yeah, you know, I'm enjoying this show. This show is funny even for me to watch. So sure, go ahead. You know?
Yeah, I just had a conversation with my dad at Thanksgiving about, because I just straight up, I was like, Dad, what were the shows that we watched growing up that drove you nuts? And what were the shows that you loved that were like in the kids show realm? And he was a big Foster's Imaginary Friend fan. He was a big Jimmy Neutron fan. But SpongeBob was like the one where even when I was 16, which would have been 2010, 6 years after the movie, we would just have like old classic, like season 1 SpongeBob's on, and he'd be like, turn it off, not allowed in my house.
Oh my
gosh. Drove him nuts. And I was like, no, okay, like this is not allowed in your house. And you're like, that's not a thing. Like, it's SpongeBob. It's our generation's Looney Tunes, you know?
It is. It really is. It stands out on its own. There's really nothing else like it. I think you wouldn't have shows like Adventure Time if it wasn't for SpongeBob. I think SpongeBob broke this barrier of like, we're going to just be weird for the sake of being weird. There's a lot of like metaphors that an adult audience will get. It's amazing. It really is one of those shows that I think I watched. I would love to have a statistic. There are several things in my life that I want like to be gamified. I want to know how many times I've watched each episode of the first 3 seasons of SpongeBob.
I know what you mean.
Which one I watched the most. Like I wish there was a statistic that I could find that. Maybe one day there will be, and when we live in that world, I'm going to be freaked out for other reasons, I'm sure.
What do you think? Yeah, because I know I'm very much influenced by the first 3 seasons, what came before the movie. What would you say in that core first 3 seasons is your, and now we're getting into SpongeBob in general, which I guess is a good,
that's fine.
jumping point for the movie.
Yeah, it's loose. This is a loose episode.
Because mine was for sure the rock bottom episode.
Favorite episode?
Favorite episode. One that, like, if you could only watch one more SpongeBob the rest of your life, what would it be?
I would hate that. I think any SpongeBob episode would be bad to have to do that with. But I don't know, man. I don't know that. So yours is rock bottom?
Yeah, when he goes to rock bottom, which reminded me of a moment in the movie.
After Glove World? That's a tough episode, man. I don't know. It's you feel off-put the entire time you're in rock bottom. Like, I don't...
Yeah.
I don't know. I more so than anything, I just like to reflect, and we watched this movie last night, and we spent maybe the next hour and a half reminiscing on the different SpongeBob songs from the early seasons that just meant so much to us. And I wrote down a list of all my favorites, and it's crazy how long this is. I honestly think, I mean, I'm not nostalgic with any of the Adventure Time songs, which we all know
just
that.
from the first 3 seasons, though.
I don't know if they're all from the first 3 seasons. Like, there's the very first Christmas is on here, which may or may not be in the first 3 seasons.
I think it is.
It might be. And then Best Day Ever, which I don't think that's first 3 seasons.
No, it is, because it was, because it's actually in the credits of the movie. It's one of the last songs that rolls in the credits of this movie.
Really? Okay. The timeline in my head is all messed up then. I mean,
it was written by Tom Kenny, actually, too.
Oh, that's great. It's so funny. I almost wanted to go in with this podcast episode and just go, da, 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 da. You know, the poop, the fry cook.
No.
What is it? Like how to be a fry cook or whatever.
Hoopla.
Hoopla. Hoopla. But yeah, so the fun song, which is probably the best song from SpongeBob. Campfire song, Bubble Bowl, Ballad, which is Sweet Victory, Krusty Krab's Pizza, Hey All You People, won't you listen to me?
The Jellyfish Banger.
What?
The Jellyfish Party Banger.
Oh yeah, the Jellyfish Party Banger, which I don't know, I didn't look up what the name of that was, but I do love that episode.
It's definitely a non-copyrighted version of like a Jock Jam song.
You know, Ripped My Pants might be the episode that I would watch over and over again.
It might be. I know that's my wife's favorite song from SpongeBob. That
might be my favorite song, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, Fun Song's amazing, but that might be my favorite. This Grill Is Not a Home, which is also a classic,
classic ballad.
Classic ballad with SpongeBob and Krabs. The Very First Christmas, All About You Girl, which is the like boy band Fish singing to Pearl for her birthday.
You're bringing up ones I haven't even
cry. You know, I get it.
You're bringing up ones I haven't thought about in years.
Dude, Texas, when Sandy's all in the feels about being homesick.
I hated that one.
Oh, you didn't like that one?
No, I just wasn't a fan, which is kind of like Sandy in the SpongeBob movie has 2 lines the entire time, which I am like, Sandy episodes were not my favorite. I don't know. I think they just leaned, the ones where they really leaned on her being like, I'm from Texas. I'm like, that's not how people from Texas talk. Like,
I don't know. I love it. Like the episode where they're like, pinky out, you know, they're trying to, I think that's the first moment they meet Sandy, that very first episode.
It is, because they're trying to like class up.
Yeah. They've never been inside of a oxygen dome before. And so SpongeBob's just dying of dehydration. Y'all have seen these episodes. So Long Bikini Bottom, which is another Sandy classic. And then the Striped Sweater song, which is far too short. I wish that song was another couple bars. Because it's just like the best time to wear a striped sweater is all the time. One with the turtleneck, that's the kind. And then there's like one more line and it's over. And I wish it went on for another bar or two.
I bet they had it in the writer's room. I bet they had something queued up for like a 2.5 minute long song.
Oh yeah.
Never got to it.
I would love it. Anyways, to this movie, this is really just a road trip movie in a sense. Yeah. It's just SpongeBob and Patrick going for a cruise and bad things happening along the way. And back home, all has gone to hell. Plankton is finally getting his way. He's getting the formula. He's taking over. It's just I don't know. It's a great take on the road trip movie in my mind.
Yeah. Do you think it's an ode to Dumb and Dumber?
Could be.
Because it's kind of like the two idiots on the road trip, the serious people that are hunting them down, and then the more serious, they're trying to, help the situation at hand. So like, Jim Carrey's trying to get the suitcase back to Mary, but at the end of the day, there's something more serious going on, and that's the whole like kidnapping. And that's almost
maybe
the whole arc of this movie is that they're on a quest, but the quest is not really the real quest per se.
Yeah, and also I love that this movie is able to give you where you're going, what's happening, and then throughout the entire movie, you're constantly kind of drawn into a different direction. Like, of course, Dennis is this bad guy. He's chasing them down. We're going to have to confront Dennis. But at first, SpongeBob and Patrick die, and then we continue on. They face Dennis, they go back home, and then Plankton's taken over, and Plankton cheats, and Plankton takes over Neptune. And, spoilers, I guess. I don't know. Go watch this movie.
Spoilers to the end of the podcast.
But it's just this wonderful, like, movement through, and it doesn't feel at all like, oh, gosh, why isn't Dennis bigger? Because Dennis isn't the big bad guy. Dennis is a henchman for Plankton. But it feels like all they got to do when you're watching this movie is beat Dennis, and it's over. Right. And that's not the case. I love it. I really dig it.
Yeah. So you like you kind of dig that scene in a movie where you feel like the apex problem is solved, but there's like the next phase. It's like boss.
As long as it works, it doesn't always work, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Essentially.
That's true. I was going to say, like, I liked that fact. I didn't like, and I can't say I didn't like it, just maybe creatively speaking, with Dennis specifically, I feel like they could have made Dennis an interesting 3-dimensional character, even if it was just like a funny,
manly man bro dude.
Yeah, well, and he was the antithesis of SpongeBob and Patrick when they were trying to be like manly men, and that's the whole message of the movie, is that like, you can be a manly man, but you're not going to be like the hero, or you're not going to always succeed just by being manly. So it served its purpose, but I was like, they could have given
yourself
Dennis kind of a funny, like, hey, remember your childhood, and then Dennis turns good, and then he goes back and helps them defeat Plankton. Like, it could have defeated, like, I don't know, it could have tied that. The ending gets chaotic at the end. If you did you feel that way?
I don't know. He's the odd job. He's the Chuck Norris, it's just like a step. Well, the Chuck Norris in the sense of Bruce Lee. It's a step in the right direction to take him down, move on from that. Like it's not the big bad, as I was just mentioning. It didn't bother me at all. What is interesting is that it doesn't bother me, and probably just because of how much I love SpongeBob, that the resolution at the end of this movie is SpongeBob becoming a rock star.
Okay.
That's how the movie wraps up. They're just
can we make some bacon pancakes over here and talk about my Jake mistakes of this movie? Oh my gosh.
What?
My Jake mistakes of this movie are the ex machinas, like, of this one.
Okay, sure.
The immediate random resolutions to their problem. The first one, I get it. It's funnier. And one of my factoids is that the writers like pitched the Dave Hasselhoff scene before they had even had Dave Hasselhoff commit to the movie.
Okay.
Which I think is hilarious. And it's kind of an ex machina. Yeah. And they didn't have him like for the movie. And then they wrote the scene, and then they contacted him.
That's awesome.
But it was kind of like, I guess they could have used the bag of winds and shot the crown back. It just wouldn't have been funny. Per se.
Yeah, the bag of winds would have been lame. I love that the bag of winds is this big foreshadowed thing that they can take all the way back home. As soon as they get the crown, you're good. Just open this up. And of course, Patrick messes it up and they can't use that.
Yeah.
So they got to have the Hasselhoff. He's got to be in the movie. Like, of course, it's got to be him.
Now, the second ex machina of it was exactly what you said. The wizard scene where he just It's like Plankton
This is the
has
best scene.
them cornered, absolutely no answers. And it's like the answer is he becomes a rock and roll Goofy Goober, and the power of his rock blast everyone's helmets off their head. And you're like, dude, couldn't you have had like Dennis come back as a redemption character and help you defeat Plankton? Like that could have been so cool.
I mean, honestly, what really happens is SpongeBob accepts the fact that he can be a kid and still save the day. He can still go to where is the Shell City, right? Like as a kid, as himself, with Patrick, as dumb as they can be, they still made it to Shell City and they still survived and they still made it back. And they're here to save the day, and all as being kids. And none of the adults, none of the men were able to do that. That's the moment where he like fully accepts that breaks down. I'm Goofy Goober rock, right? The greatest Twisted Sister parody of all time that you probably never knew you needed, but of course we got it in this movie. Yeah, I don't know, dude. I just love that scene. As stupid as it is, it's amazing. He's just shredding on a guitar.
And I think that, I mean, like even at a younger age, like I never had a problem with it. But then I kind of like, oh man, I just like, you get invested in this movie and then you're like, it ends and you're like, oh, like Plankton's perfect plan was just like foiled completely by some guitar that SpongeBob got that can shoot lasers out.
It's just what I kind of feel about it is this movie is quintessential. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey. The road trip itself is always going to be, in every comedy movie, way more fun. Every comedy in general. The first 45 minutes of that movie are going to be the best parts of that movie. And then they got to get serious and they got to resolve. And I love that SpongeBob, instead of getting serious and resolving and kind of a lame, like, well, we had to do it because we're telling a story kind of way. They're just like, no, we're going to be goofy and we're going to solve this in a goofy way that is still fun to watch and still fun to see the resolution of. And maybe it's hella nostalgic, but I think this is just a really great, the ending doesn't matter. You know, the ending is just so fun. And that's what they were going for.
You're right. There's probably a good chance that it was kind of written that way and written to be like, we're out here being kids. We're out here not trying to like solve the world problems or like tie together. They did tie together. And that's why I think they maybe they ended it like that. They were like, they had this big lesson and SpongeBob's on like a monologue essentially and keeps interrupting Plankton on his monologue. And then they're just going to be like, we're just going to end it goofy. It's not about necessarily the monologue at the end.
Yeah, it's great. And it's very interesting to think that, so this is Steven Hillenburg is the creator of SpongeBob. He was a marine biologist teacher, I believe. And his idea was like, let's wrap it up. Like, let this be the end of SpongeBob with this movie, and then like no more moving forward. And I would have respected that so much had they actually done that. Yeah, we got good SpongeBob afterwards, but still, I don't keep up with it. I'm sure kids still love it because I actually was talking to a coworker recently this week, and she mentioned that her kids still watch SpongeBob. That's so cool. I know it's still cool, but I just wish, like, what I loved about the first season of Fully Cooley is that they wrapped that up. They had a goal, they had a mission, they wrapped it up. What I love about Cowboy Bebop is that it's a 26 episode TV show that wraps up in the coolest way possible.
Yeah,
if SpongeBob had done that, oh my gosh, dude. Like, we finally get to see Plankton stealing the formula. We finally get to see everything come full circle. SpongeBob accepts how goofy
SpongeBob
he is.
Has been working at the Krusty Krab at this point for 31 years.
I know. I was going to bring that up.
They teed it up. They teed it up to be the end because he's like, I've been working with Mr. Krabs for so many years.
What
like,
is drunk? Yeah.
We'll talk about that scene later because that's my runner-up.
That might be the best scene.
It was my runner-up, I think.
Yeah, 374 Employee of the Month awards SpongeBob has in his household. The fact that he has a wall for that, like a massive wall of portraits of himself dedicated to his... That first scene's really fascinating. Let's just talk about that whole first scene when we see the cheese dream is what I'm calling it. You know, and Adventure Time we have Crook dreams, and SpongeBob we have cheese dreams, where SpongeBob... he becomes the manager, or he is the manager. He's so confident. He's so like able to accomplish everything, and everyone relies on him. And this is how he sees himself. And it's like a whole bomb defusal situation, right?
Yeah.
And he goes in there, he puts the cheese on the patty. Why did the patty not have cheese on it? Who was making the patty? It doesn't matter. SpongeBob's there to solve the day or save the day. And then he's going to get that. He wakes up. He's like, it's time. I'm confident. I am able. I'm a kid. Who cares? I'm ready to become Krusty Krab 2's manager.
I love that scene, though, in the sense that I can't remember if the Bubble Bass episode was part of pre or post movie, but when SpongeBob takes, missing the pickles on the sandwich so seriously.
Oh, yeah.
It's a matter of, this is how he sees his work. Like, he sees going to work, just making sandwiches, the most mundane, everybody always jokes like flipping patties at McDonald's, like is the lowest tier of working or whatever. But SpongeBob sees it as this. He sees it as this like dire situations. Like, people got to get their cheese on their burgers because it's a dire situation. And it's kind of something I think that's beautiful in the way that SpongeBob views his responsibilities and his passions, Yeah.
He's just this ever optimist. Like, that is so maybe what I love about SpongeBob is that he's just so happy, so willing. And in this movie, you do have him breaking down a handful of times. You got him at the trench, right? Like, we had just done the thud tug scene at this point, and they're driving out to the trench, and SpongeBob just absolutely breaks down, and he's like, all of a sudden, maybe I can't do this. Like, I'm just a kid. Like, Patrick's wearing goofy goober underwear. Like, we can't go do this. And Mindy's like, no, you have to. Like, you're the only people that can do this because of who you are. And she stops them from quitting. And of course, that's one of my favorite lines in the movie is Patrick has this crush throughout the entire movie on, Mindy, the daughter.
Did you see my underwear?
Yeah. Did you want to? That is the best. That might be the best line of the whole movie. It is so funny.
It's comparable, but when she's like giving them the mission, or whenever she's meeting them for the first time or something, she's like, I know all the fish in the sea, and he's like, you're hot.
Yeah. And she does the mermaid magic, and it's just a placebo effect, right? She just gives them the kelp mustaches that makes them feel like, oh, we are, man, let's go do this. And then they have this giant music montage with the monsters and body percussion that convinces the monsters to be on their side. And now that we're men, like, it's a terrible like lesson, but yeah, dude, now that you're invincible.
It's the joke. That's why it's kind of a fun joke lesson. Is like it plays into the point of the movie's trying to make. They do have this cool like confidence scene. We'll get into deeper thoughts later, but it's ultimately defeated. But on the Mindy topic, because you said, Patrick's line was your favorite. Was there something off about her the entire movie? Like
Mindy the whole time?
Yeah,
maybe so. I'm not really sure.
She's voiced by Scarlett Johansson, which, first of all, I think was like a not a good choice in my opinion. She does not fit the SpongeBob world of voice animating or voice acting, like animated voice acting. Yeah. Like it seems like you threw a normal person into the SpongeBob universe, and she just feels like she's there because it's a movie. It takes
does kind of feel. Yeah. I do kind of wish there was someone who was maybe a little bit more cartoony in their delivery, or maybe even someone from the show that we already knew. Like, where's Sandy this whole time? What's Sandy been up to? We're going to end SpongeBob without Sandy really being involved at all. That seems kind of silly to me.
They did write in a scene where they cut it out, or I said probably never animated, never probably made it into the final script, but they were going to meet Sandy in the real world, like on land, and she was going to be a real squirrel, and then Patrick was going to throw up.
Okay.
So
I love that.
That somehow didn't make the final cut there.
Yeah.
So I would assume that they were going to have Sandy like maybe help them when they were on the beach before they wrote the Hasselhoff scene.
Yeah. Well, let's go. I guess we just go to the next great scene. We're just not really going through this movie.
No, we went from the cheese dream.
We hopped around at the cheese dream. Squidward gets chosen as manager, and then you have, I mean, I'll go ahead and spoil this. My sexy character of the entire movie, Patrick Starr, coming in paragliding nude, and this is not why he's my sexy character. In case you're wondering. He just happens to be nude, and he crashes the stage after SpongeBob finds out that Patrick is not Patrick, Squidward's the actual manager that Krabs chose.
Yeah,
and Krabs is whispering to him and definitely says "jackass." Like he's like, I can't even do it.
He said, "I'm being a what?"
Yeah, no, and he definitely even whispers the word "jackass." I'm pretty sure, or at least it sounds like it to me. Yeah, he says, "You're just a kid." No, he's 31 years old. He's not like. I don't feel like a kid. I'm not 31, but too close, way too close.
Yeah. Well, I definitely, the Patrick butt scene would have been for sure if like my mom watched the movie when I was 4th grade and was Patrick's butt with a flag in between his butt cheeks. Like my mom would have been like, "Nope, turn this off."
Well, the end of the movie is the reason why he's my sexy character. It's the scene with him in the fishnets and the high heels.
Well, Patrick, I can say, man, he gets my lovely of the entire movie.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he gets my love. It's not because of the sexy scenes. It's because they did it. There's a lot of early SpongeBob episodes where they make Patrick so much of an idiot, and it's almost like incomparable. And this one, it's like, he's not smart, but he's on the same level of SpongeBob the entire movie. There's not one of them being smarter than the other. And there's not too many scenes of Patrick being like overly stupid, like nailing a board to his head or doing something like that.
True. And he does do that in the first season.
Yeah.
Quite a lot.
And so I think the Patrick humor in this one hits a good, great peak of just being like, yeah, like the Dumb and Dumber spinoff, not one is not dumber than the other. Yeah,
I like that. Patrick's just a loyal best friend who doesn't really have any plans in life other than hanging out, partying at Goofy Goober. And
stands up for SpongeBob. He's like the best.
Stands up for him. Like, he's a great dude.
Stands up for him, there to support him. He's like, when they go to the, what is it? The Tough Tug, whatever it is.
The Tug.
The Thug Tug, he's the one that steals the key, and he's like, "Guess what I got?" Like,
oh yeah.
So he's still like it's not like he's useless, and he's not played off.
No, and he didn't give in either. I mean, his willpower to not sing the Goofy Goober theme song was just as strong as SpongeBob's. I thought for sure, the first time I watched this, and even rewatching it, I was like, I can't remember what happens here. I'm like, SpongeBob or Patrick has got to give, and it's going to be Patrick, right? And it wasn't. It was, of course, the two other guys that were faking their way into this rough and tumble bar. That is another one of my favorite lines of this movie. The rule of all bubble blowing babies will be beaten senseless by every able-bodied person or patron in the bar. That is such a great line.
Yeah, you feel like you get that way in some of those East Nashville dive bars. You walk in and you're like... You get
sometimes
all the
I feel like I don't belong. Yeah,
you get all the stank guy from those East Nashville hipsters.
Yep. Even sometimes the musicians, and you're just like, man, like I get it. I work in the industry, but like, I'm not trying to be a industry guy. I don't know. Whatever, man. I'm creative. Be my friend. Please be my friend. Anyways.
Well, we skipped over, I'd say, what would be my runner-up tops? And I mean, very computable tops to the entire movie was the Goofy Goobers nut bar scene when they just get absolutely plastered together.
Yeah, wasted on milkshakes.
And they don't, I love this because they don't hide it at all. He's like, waiter, like that. And then they wake up at 8 a.m. with 5 o'clock shadow and red eyes. And it's like, oh, every adult watching this movie is like, they're completely hungover.
They did that scene really well too. I love that it's not just like a freeze frame or some sort of a weird music montage. I love that they do the waiter bit because that is such a funny bit and it pays off so well with the story of the movie. He gets pissed off. He's hungover. He goes to the Krusty Krab, and then
he tells off his boss the next day.
Yeah, tells Neptune like what a jerk Krabs is.
Very relatable. Very like coming into work the next day after a rough day, and then just being like, I can't believe I'm here.
Yeah, I wasted next 8 hours of my life at this place, and spent 10 hours here last night trying to figure out whatever bull crap. Yeah, it is relatable, and or not getting the promotion that you thought maybe you were deserving of or whatever. But that scene, they just do it really well in this movie. It's really great.
Yeah, well, and they mix in and they make it, like fun and funny. Like it's obvious they're not like, angry drinking ice cream because they have the funny like the guy behind the bar getting piled up with ice cream and getting like just coated in ice cream. So they make it, they throw a joke into a moment that could be really sad and depressing or, overly weird for kids of being like, I don't get this emotion. And they kind of, a lot of shows and why we do Adventure Time is they can mask a lot of those serious moments under some little like topical humor, or like, I say topical, more like slapstick humor. But it's like a serious moment, but they're like slapstick, haha. And the kids are like, oh, this is still funny.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess to that too, let's just go ahead and skip even further forward, right? And we're going to hop over a scene that we'll probably come back to in a little bit because I want to talk about the ice cream stand. But first, Shell City is another great example of just like how morbid this show can be and yet still be lighthearted and fun. And then all of a sudden there's a mariachi band and we're having a blast and the fish are all coming back to life for some reason, which doesn't really make sense. But
yeah, okay, I was like, cool. Kind of an ex machina as well as like
a little bit for the Cyclops. Yeah. The Cyclops is there and they had just beat Dennis, right? So they didn't do anything. Dennis got stomped by an even bigger boot. Plankton had said, I want you to step on him because of course Plankton's always getting stepped on. And Dennis exposes their fake mustaches that aren't really mermaid magic. And the bigger boot just crushes Dennis. And then the scuba diver, also known as the Cyclops, takes him to Shell City. But at Shell City, you have your heroes pass away. And they pass away happily. They're happy to die. They realize, and Patrick is also a great moment of comedy. Patrick, all he can do is say, Shell City. Shell City. And SpongeBob's just like, yeah, where we were supposed to go. We never made it. All right. He's just, he's had enough of Patrick's Shell City until they realize, oh, we're here. We did it. Like they start singing that I'm a goofy goober. Yeah. And it's because they're happy that they did it as kids, as their true selves. And then they dry out and they pass away. And then the Pokemon moment of this, that Pokemon first movie moment with the tears saving the heroes,
Oh, good parallel. I did not draw that parallel there.
It just came to me. Yeah, the tear, causes the smoke and then the sprinklers go off or whatever and all the dead fish come back to life. And then you go, oh, maybe this is not based off of reality and this is a fake movie or a fictional movie. That's kind of when I realized it. But no, that scene almost makes me like it gets me into emotions watching it as an adult.
Oh yeah,
well,
we definitely
such a good scene.
We definitely had one. We put out an Instagram post today. I should say Russell put out an Instagram post of just saying, "Hey, what do you guys think of like SpongeBob movie?" And we had some responses in, and one was like, "Used to tear me up at the end every time."
Oh yeah,
and so yeah, tear jerking scene. I draw that scene in parallel. You already mentioned the Croak Dream from Adventure Time. And that was kind of like my Croak Dream moment of the movie. It was like they realized they have done what they set out to do and they were okay to die at that point. And so that was very Croak Dream-esque, is like that weird acceptance of death, Yeah.
No, it was great. I feel like a lot of this movie is just me saying how good it was, how great it was. But I just really do enjoy this movie. And then you have this wonderful ad placement of Elmer's glue, which might be the only ad placement in the entire movie. I'm not sure if I caught on to much more other than
if you consider David Hasselhoff a brand, then yeah, maybe the second one.
He's kind of he's kind of just a
brand.
walking what is that movie he was in? Freaking
No, he was in Baywatch.
Yeah, he's just a walking Baywatch figure, but I don't know. Yeah, and then all right, let's talk about the Hasselhoff, right? So the Hasselhoff shows up out of nowhere. He's going to pick him up and take him to Bikini Bottom after they try to use the bag of winds. And he's swimming like he's got an engine going, Ned, but I noticed, his arms and his feet aren't moving at all. So what's propelling him through the water?
Well, in the terms of the movie, in the filming, they actually made a 12-foot David Hasselhoff to go into the water. And it legitimately had lifelike skin. Every single one of his moles was painted perfectly on him. They made a legit, and then David Hasselhoff loved it so much he bought it off the movie. Was going to auction it off. It got an offer that was so high, and then I think Jimmy Kimmel used it in his show and had the 12-foot David Hasselhoff as his desk on the Jimmy Kimmel show.
That's hilarious.
And then I think at the end of the day, and maybe where it still is now, is I think that David Hasselhoff was no, I'm not going to sell it. I'm just going to keep it.
Yeah, why not? And also, why would someone want that?
I don't know. For $30,000, there's a lot of rich people that'd be I'll take that. I'll take a 12-foot David Hasselhoff.
Well, Ned, what's propelling him forward? I'm curious if you have any theories on
manly strength. That's what the movie's all about, right? Not that we're men.
I think he just couldn't do it if he wasn't a man, unfortunately. But that's the only answer I have for what's propelling him forward.
Yeah, it kind of stuck. It stuck along that theme of there's two themes. There's I don't know. It's almost like two sides of the same coin. That there's a good aspect of maturing and be quote unquote becoming a man, and then there's the other flip side of the coin of losing yourself to that.
Yeah.
And David Hasselhoff's totally just the man. Never lost himself.
Never lost himself. Yeah. Even I've never figured out that pecs movement. I've been working on it. I've been going to the gym, but I don't think I'm quite there yet. But I'm hoping eventually I'll unlock that skill. I think that's level
60 more years in the gym and you can do that.
Yeah. I think that's level 53 is what I want to say before you unlock that skill. But I'm hoping I get there eventually.
It goes purple belt, black belt, David Hasselhoff belt.
David Hasselbelt. I don't even know. That's not really even a good pun. I don't know why I said that. I don't know, man. And then of course you have Dennis again. Maybe just Dennis's pure willpower. Somehow he using the bigger boot from the Cyclops gets onto the Hasselhoff. Mm-hmm. So I think that just goes to show how he has the power to grow a mustache in a second if he wants to. He might have some supernatural abilities.
That's true. I'm trying to think of no, Plankton would have just hired him as a hired gun. He wouldn't have genetically modified him, but
yeah, he found him on the assassin website from the Adventure Time, website. I'm sure.
Calling Blastronaut to come and take out Dennis.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to see a Hasselhoff versus Blastronaut battle at the end. They really could have used Hasselhoff a little bit more. I think that's what I want. I want more Hasselhoff in this movie.
I think he served the right amount of purpose.
No, he did.
More mind-boggling to me than just swimming like a boat was he knew exactly where Bikini Bottom was. That's Bikini Bottom's at the bottom of the ocean. He just stops and he's like, Bikini Bottom's right below here. And I was like,
bro.
How does he know that?
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe unless it's right? Well known that there's a group of little sea critters that live next to that island or whatever.
I think he just watches the bay. I think he's just aware of what goes on in his bay.
He's just aware of everything in the bay.
Everything in the bay.
Because he's watching the bay.
So does that mean I don't know where Bikini Bottom is technically located? Is it off of the California coast? It must be, right?
I would imagine it's a Florida. No. I guess if Hasselhoff's in this movie, it'd be California coast. So yeah, you're right.
I don't know. I've never really thought about where it might actually be located.
Or in Bikini Atoll.
They go to Atlantis like 4 different times, and then there's like 4 or 5 different lost cities of Atlantis in SpongeBob. So there's some inconsistencies with the location just in general, I would imagine, or it's not, whatever. It's a cartoon. Who cares?
Yeah, you're right. Well, okay. This is getting off topic, but in the large scheme of thing, and kind of going back to the beginning of the movie and more of like the Krusty Krab promotion and the promotion of the Krusty Krab 2, which was next door.
Capitalism.
In the realm of inconsistencies, what I've realized in the show is the inconsistency of like everybody in Bikini Bottom just having a hard on for Krusty Krabs. There's people out the door. And then the next episode, it'll be like, Mr. Krabs will be like, we haven't had a customer in 4 weeks and everybody hates Krabby Patties and they think they're so lame. And the next episode, like in the movie, then they're like, this is breaking news. We got a whole new Krabby Patty, like.
Oh, yeah. Everyone freaks out. The Krabby Patties are making our tongues different colors now.
Like, I don't understand the back and forth between like, do people in Bikini Bottom actually like Krusty Krab, or is it awful?
I think they like the patties, right? I mean, obviously it's enough for everybody to go to the chum bucket, which he's never had a customer. He's been customerless for 31 years. How is he affording the property tax of the chum bucket? I need to know that, Blankton. What are you doing on the side? What's your side hustle?
Well,
it can't be podcasting.
That's the whole SpongeBob conspiracy theory is, what? Chum is chopped up fish, and he can't sell chum bucket because he's feeding fish back to fish.
Oh, man. Yeah.
That's like the whole conspiracy is that's why he never sells and never has customers because nobody wants to eat their friends.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's why he's also evil. So,
yeah, he's evil for many reasons, but he's kind of a playful evil. He's a bit of a Ice King in some ways, I think.
Would you say like Ice King, like the chaotic neutral or whatever? Or is he
He's evil. I mean, he's got to be evil, right?
Yeah.
He's the Scrappy-Doo of this movie.
He has several, but not in this movie, but has several redeeming moments where you feel sympathetic towards him in the show. Not in this movie, but.
Well, we find out in the show, right, that he was best friends with Krabs when they were much younger. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really sure, man. I do have a most punchable character from this movie, though.
Okay. Let's see if it matches with mine.
I'm sure it does. It's the creepy old lady that is the tongue of the monster that is using Jake powers. That the monster also has Jake powers, but only in relation to its tongue because it has the little kitty that's like, I'll let you pet Mr. Whiskers.
Yeah, that was okay. You're right. I withdraw my most punchable because the second kitty tongue makes
the free ice cream stand freaks me out. That scene as a kid to this day is my least favorite scene of the entire movie. I don't think it's bad. I think it's a good scene. I just don't like scary things, and it's freaky, dude. It's so gross and messed up. I don't like it. I mean, it
dude,
at all.
I feel like I get a Instagram, TikTok post of like, here's 17 fish that have never been photographed before from the depths of the ocean, and they all have some sort of weird angler, like let me suck you into my mouth mentality, and it's just like that,
Yeah. Well, I wrote down in my notes, love the movie, hate the scene. I don't think the scene's bad. I just it just freaks me out, and she's my most punchable character.
It does lead up to the most iconic, probably culturally relevant moment of this movie. Is the surprise face Patrick Star. As soon as that monster chases them off the cliff, and the other massive sea monster comes and like takes them and they chomps it down, and you get surprise face Patrick Star, and that's probably one of the most iconic, recognizable SpongeBob moments. I mean, of the entire brand, if you really think about it.
I never thought about that. SpongeBob is just a meme factory, right? It feels like there's so many memes that have come from SpongeBob, and maybe it's the right show at the right time when the internet was doing the right things for memes to really have a significant draw from SpongeBob. But man, it really is a significant part of that culture. It feels like.
Yeah, it's like that meme, imagination with the rainbow, like that's probably one of the most famous, like early like 4chan style memes. Like, but I love it. I love that one of them comes from this movie, and I was like, if you take that snippet and show it to somebody who's never seen SpongeBob, they'd be like, huh, like that's, yeah, for sure. I've seen that like stitched on somebody's patch jacket before, you know?
It's interesting. I was watching a video about the creator of SpongeBob and his choice to keep Steven Hillenburg and his choice to keep SpongeBob an adult, whereas he was getting push from Nickelodeon. Oh, like he should be a kid and he should be in boating school or whatever school you need him to be in. Yeah, and we're going to have a lot of school scenes and the show's going to be around the school. And he pushed really hard for no, like he's going to be an adult. He's going to do adult things. He's going to go to a job. He's going to have off time. He's going to hang out with his friends. He's going to do, you know, relatively adult things other than he does go to boating school because he still can't drive. But,
yeah, which is, I mean, it's related. And again, I don't understand, like, going back to my deep thought, this whole like thing, the SpongeBob's a fry cook and he can't drive. He goes to boating school, which is like driving school. It's like going through like very mundane, very boring adult level things. And kind of like what you said at the beginning is that he's just so overly optimistic about everything. It leads you to believe like, oh yeah, I'm complaining about my really good job that I have, my really well-paying job. I'm not being a fry cook, and that SpongeBob can be out there like loving the things he does. You know, like it's, I don't know. It's somewhat of a, you can choose to have the view of your life that you choose to have and be optimistic about it, you know?
Yeah. And I really bring that up mostly just to even just say one of my favorite quotes from this movie was, "You don't need a license to drive a sandwich."
It's the paddy wagon.
It's the paddy wagon. It's good. I got a couple more. I mean, as far as my favorite quotes, the only other one I haven't mentioned thus far is the "sorry about this" calendar that I think Plankton does it one time and then SpongeBob does it at the beginning of the movie. And it never stuck out to me, but for some reason this time watching through it, I just like, oh, that's a funny thing to do because they tear off the date from their calendar and they're just like, "Sorry about this calendar." And then they rip it off. I don't know why that stuck out to me.
Did you notice that there was a parallel of SpongeBob tearing off the calendar at the beginning of the movie and then Plankton tearing it off at the end of the movie?
Oh, like the beginning. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's like they did a full circle. There wasn't much in this movie that went full circle.
So there's a purpose to it.
Yeah, there was kind of a purpose, like SpongeBob ripping off the calendar, very optimistic, and same thing with Plankton ripping off the calendar and like, today's the day.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna take over the world. You're gonna die, Mr. Krabs. Like,
and both their plans were foiled.
And both of their plans were foiled. So that's why, I mean, we talk about it with Adventure Time all the time. Where I'm like, I love when they do full circle episodes or like full circle story arcs that take a whole season. And I was like, there wasn't much in the movie that went full circle. So it's kind of cool to catch.
That's great. Yeah. Well, if you haven't picked up on it, I mean, there isn't a character that I've been hyped about more in this movie than SpongeBob himself. SpongeBob's my lovely. I think it's just an easy, well, of course he is. He's the main character. Look, he's the best. You know, I have a whole little script written about him. He's the best bubble blowing, patty frying, rock riding, jellyfish orchestrating sponge I know. The dude's an icon, you know, like we grew up with him. We spent hundreds of hours watching Bikini Bottom, or at least I know I did, and all my friends did. And Ned, it's good to hear that you did as well eventually, a little bit later in your life.
Oh, it did. I mean, it didn't take long. They played it from 3:30 p.m. until 7 p.m. every day.
Yeah, you had no choice but to watch
2005 until 2000 now. Like,
well, we spent so much time with all his friends, with Patrick and Sandy and Bubble Buddy and Chip and Penny and the used napkin, to name the people in the show that probably are his actual friends. That, you know, I don't really think I would count Squidward as his friend, other than a few specific episodes where Squidward kind of comes around on SpongeBob, or SpongeBob comes around on Squidward. Either way, but there honestly isn't a single show that I think is more quotable or that I've seen more in my life than SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yeah. I mean, truly,
it lives in its own category. It's great.
Yeah. If our parents, if our generation ever rips on SpongeBob and says, "Oh, it's so stupid," I'm like, well, aren't you the generation that woke up 6 a.m. on Saturdays to watch Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry, which are just like, again, amazingly written, amazingly animated cartoon shows that still people watch and reference and make remakes of and continue to make, like, cartoons like
or
that,
influenced by constantly.
And I think you hit it on the head when you said at the beginning of the show that, like, this is a huge paving of the way for Adventure Time, that the 2D animation, and I read some stuff about the writers in this, of going, like, they had actually had a $30 million budget for this movie. And it's like, do we start moving SpongeBob to 3D animation, which they eventually did with the SpongeBob Out of Water movie. But they were like, no, there's some sort of beauty with 2D animation, that, it's all about the story. It's not about how pretty it looks. It's not about how well we animate it. It's not the Pixar, like, let's have 7 minutes of no dialogue because it just looks so good. It is very much about the story and the message we're trying to say, and the jokes we're trying to make, and frees them up to make, half of those jokes wouldn't be funny if they hadn't animated it the way they did. So props to this movie, just again, for fifth highest grossing movie adaptation of a TV show ever. Right behind Pokemon, the first movie, which is why I love that we already reviewed that one.
We're going to go through the top 5. What else is there? Shrek doesn't count.
Shrek, no, Shrek doesn't count.
Show came after.
It was in the same year. The first trailer for the SpongeBob movie came out on the DVD release of Shrek 2.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of cool. But number 2 on that list, that's the only other one I know. Number 2 on the highest grossing TV adaptation movies is the SpongeBob Sponge Out of Water movie. So I've never actually seen it either. So I was like,
I haven't either.
Well, I guess
I hear it's okay. Like, I hear it's better than the third, but not as good as the first.
Let's talk about, so the reason why we still even have SpongeBob is because of this movie. Like you mentioned, they were going to put it to bed. It budgeted $30 million, grossed $141 million. And the promotions that they did for this movie is absolutely outlandish. And I don't know if you remember that from growing up.
Not at all. Dude, did you watch it? I have no idea what you're talking about.
It was ads on Nickelodeon for the movie. It was Burger King toys. It was Burger King inflatables on top of Burger Kings. Like, it was one-off specials. It was outlandish how much they hyped this movie up. And I didn't even watch SpongeBob in 4th grade. And I was aware of, like, okay, this is like a big deal. This is a big, and it was all because of marketing
in America.
And then they sold so much merchandise, and they merchandised the shit out of SpongeBob so hard that Nickelodeon pretty much forced them and said, yeah, we're still making SpongeBob after this. Like, you guys want to put it to bed? No, we're still doing it. And it's still around to this day.
Which, I don't think Steven Hillenburg, he's passed away now. He passed away a few years ago. I think I've seen a couple things about, like, writers or people that knew him well that would say, like, they don't really appreciate where the new movie went or where some of the new spin-off shows are going. And they don't think that he would have, really been about it, or he would have let that ever happen. But I think I could be wrong. So maybe you correct me if you know, or someone write us and let us know. But I think he might have stopped working on SpongeBob pretty soon after this movie, if not after the movie.
He did. This was his exit to SpongeBob. He did not work on seasons 4 through 9 of SpongeBob, which is 2004 through 2015. The SpongeBob Sponge Out of Water movie, wildly enough, was his return to SpongeBob, and he did come back in 2015. I don't know actually how long he was still around after that. But it makes me interested. That's season 10, and there has been like fans going, season 10 is wildly better than seasons 5 through 9. Like,
really?
Yeah. So it makes, or if I say 4 through 9, when he was not around. So I kind of want to go back and do a full season 10 watch through and be like, when Hillenburg comes back and has his, hand in the pie.
Yeah,
again,
that would be cool. I didn't know he came back at all. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
so
Ned,
cool that he came back.
Yeah, what are your lessons from this movie, man? Let's wrap this episode up a little bit.
Yeah. First one is mustache makes the man. Let's be real. Mustache makes the man.
It's true.
The other one I've got, two that I know from SpongeBob in general is one that, like, when you have a passion for something and you work as hard and you love something like that, the work comes naturally. That's just a SpongeBob lesson in general. This also, the movie brings into effect the lesson that, like, when you take your work and you invest the personality or self-worth in your job too much, it's not necessarily a healthy thing. When SpongeBob doesn't get the manager promotion and just goes into a wild depression, like, you can't make your personality your work. And so that's a good lesson I knew from this one. And last one was like the definition of man, the definition of what it takes to grow up and be mature does not mean you're invincible and you're tough and you're manly, even mustache. It's about doing the right thing and going on your mission and completing your mission, and, a whole different thing to go find what your mission is. But, going on that thing is, no matter how you do it, no matter if you have to grow a mustache and be tough or, do twirls and drive a sandwich.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes you mature and grow up.
Yeah, and you can be childish, or you can be whatever it is that makes you special, and still be mature and be an adult. And SpongeBob being childish is what makes him special, and he accepts that, and that's that's what helped him defeat Plankton. I mean, I don't know. It's how this movie.
More impressively,
I love it.
The ham bone slap saved them from the monsters.
Yeah,
and
and he did it all as a kid. That's what I was trying to get
manly,
at.
Being manly wouldn't have done that, or
quote
unquote culturally.
My other lesson is simply like, sorry, I was just gonna say my other lesson is just simply that men are invincible. No, that can't be right.
What is this? An Andrew Tate podcast?
Who put this in my notes? No, obviously we're not invincible.
He's been listening to a lot of Joe Rogan, guys.
No, that's not true. But regardless, thank you so much for joining us, man. This was such a fun movie to talk about. I never thought I would sit down for an hour and discuss the SpongeBob movie and be able to reach anybody and talk about how special SpongeBob is, and maybe one day someone who worked on SpongeBob will hear this, and probably not. But it's just such a cool, special thing, and to me at least. And I'm glad we got to visit one of my favorite shows.
Everything, we went from all of our special episodes, from Pokemon to Scooby-Doo to SpongeBob. We're doing things that are close to us, and it's part of our adventure. We're here. We're almost 30. We are doing podcasts about cartoon shows called Never Ending Adventure. And that's the point, man. The point is that these things are part of our adventure, and they have shaped us into who we are. And it's fun to look back at that with a little bit more of an introspective mind.
Yeah. And Ned, you're coming up here in a couple of days.
I'm coming here tomorrow, baby.
Tomorrow? Okay. Are you staying here tomorrow?
I'm going to Nashville. I'm staying at the Homes to Suite in Demumbrian. Everybody come check me out when this comes out in 1 week.
But then you're staying at our house. We'll figure it out. We'll talk about Saturday, logistics later. Okay, awesome. Well, that's exciting. I'm excited to do some adventuring with you around Nashville, the old stomping ground.
The old stomping grounds. That's my adventure palace, baby.
Yeah, our old haunt. And I guess we'll see you guys next Tuesday for season 4, episode 1. Ned, are you excited for season 4?
I'm excited for season 4, man. It's going to get good. I dove into, like I mentioned it in the season 3 review, that season 4 has got a lot of really good stuff. It doesn't get, we don't get into multiverse in season 4. I did check that. It's not till the end, but we don't really have too many more introductions of new characters. It's a lot of just continuing story development, which I'm like, okay, yeah. Season 3 was like chugging along that way, and like we're in a good home stretch of season 4 where everything feels kind of like a continuation of what we've already like been building on.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody who joined us. Thank you, Michael Hitchcock, for producing the podcast. Thank you, Allie Taylor, for making our awesome artwork. And thank you, Ned. And thank you, Russell, your big babies who, I guess we're thanking ourselves. I don't know why we're doing that. Check us out on Instagram at Never Ending Adventure Podcast, TikTok at Never Ending Adventure Cast, Twitter at NEA_podcast. Email us your thoughts, your opinions. Get on that Traveler's Log at nea.travelerslog@gmail.com. And yeah, just strap in, strap up, get strapped on, and get ready for season 4, baby.
This is an adult podcast, baby.
We did it. We went explicit. All right, party forever.
I love you guys.
F is for friends who do stuff together.
G is for you and me.
N is for anywhere and anytime at all down here in Never Ending Adventure, the podcast.
Blue on the Adventure Podcast.